So it's basically been a month, right, of mini camps and OTAs. What are kind of some of the big things coming out of that?
The things that consistently jump out is the first running back, Derrius Guice. And I think you don't want to, like, overhype somebody's talent. I mean, I think as a personality, he's really big because he's just got that, he's always smiling. It's infectious. Loves being out among the people, very popular on social media. So he's already popular because of his personality and who he is. As a player, it's really hard to say completely what he is because they haven't even put on the pads. And I always remind people it's spring. They're not in pads. They're not going full speed, et cetera. We don't really know what a running back's going to do until you get in the game, et cetera. But what you can see with him is that there is an explosion when he cuts. And Jay Gruden talked about that. He felt like Guice was faster and a little bit more explosive than they thought he would be. And he runs with a little bit of patience before he makes that cut. So those are the things that you file away to say, okay, let's see how that translates when the pads go on. But he's a guy that jumped out, and he caught the ball well for a guy who didn't catch a lot in college. Then the other one was Alex Smith, and again, Alex Smith has a track record of productivity and a background to say this is who he is. Now, he's a guy that has continued to get better over the years. How much better will he get? I don't know. This is a good system for him, just like the Andy Reid system was a good system for him. But what you hear from players is how much they like, just, I guess, his veteran knowledge. And he's kind of a calming influence in the huddle. They feel like he's decisive with the ball. I don't remember. I was thinking about this morning. I don't remember him getting picked off during the practices that we were at. And that's kind of rare, and that's one of his strengths. Now, yesterday he almost got picked off by Mason Foster, but it stood out because I just don't remember seeing it. I could be wrong, but I don't remember seeing it. And so I think there are things like that jump out at you. The rest of it is just, it's spring practice, you have to put it into context, but those are the two big takeaways for me.
John, what's the fate of Rob Kelly? He was a guy who was oft injured last year, only had 62 attempts in 2017. I believe he slimmed down a bit. He definitely doesn't want to give up his spot on the roster. How's he looked, and what's latest on him and the way the rest of the running backs are looking in camp?
Yeah, he's consistently worked as their top running back, as their first running back. How long that continues, I don't know, but that's where he's at. But what that also tells you is the respect he has from the coaches. And, he does look a little bit quicker when you watch him. Now, that can also be because it's his third year in the system now. And you're confident in what you're doing and your reads, et cetera. Before he got hurt last year, he was the guy. And so I wouldn't be surprised if he opens up as their top guy. But I'd be really surprised if Guice isn't the guy by the time the season starts. But, again, what it tells you is how much they like him. And you can't assume that they're just going to keep, like, Guice, P. Ryan, and Chris Thompson, and maybe some other guy who can do what Thompson does. I think Kelly is absolutely in that mix, and should be. He was better than P. Ryan when he was playing last year. What we don't know is where, speaking of the other backs, is where has P. Ryan improved? Because, when he played, a couple things they wanted is more patience out of him. There were times where he was early, and especially in his season last year, where he's going ahead of the pulling guards, for example, or the pulling tight end, for example, and you can't do that. That was early. And then what they also want to see is his ability to get his contact balance, for lack of a better, the yards after contact. Can he do that? That was an area where they wanted him to improve last year, and so, can he get that starting the preseason? So I think that's going to be something to watch, but I would put Kelly and, Guice and Chris Thompson ahead of the other ones. And then I think it'll get interesting because I think there's a lot of guys who can offer them something that others cannot. Byron Marshall, Bibbs, those guys, They really like Byron Marshall when they signed him last year off of the Eagles practice squad. Then he gets hurt, but he's a guy who can offer you some things that Chris Thompson does. So if something happens to Thompson, you have your guy there. Would they go in that direction? And then a guy like the young undrafted guy, Martez Carter, I think he's going to be one to watch the preseason as maybe a guy who can kind of work his way onto the practice squad. Be back type. So if you don't want to go with Marshall or Bibbs, you could always go with Carter on the practice squad. So in case something happens to Thompson, you'd have a guy you're kind of developing there.
What about Keith Marshall? Is he still on the roster?
Yeah, but he's still coming back from the knee injury. He wasn't out there doing anything.
Oh, okay. All right.
Joined by John.
Yeah, he was a guy that was interesting last year. I just think 2 years in a row with injuries like that is going to be awfully tough.
Yeah, that's too bad for him.